everyone. I'd like to first thank you again for coming tonight and for logging on. We do have a really great panel ahead tonight. We might be answering some questions if we have some extra time later on. So please be sure to utilize the comment section if you are online, because we're going to be checking that over. Second, I'd like to introduce myself and also is that better now we can hear? Okay. And kind of what recovery is and what we do on campus. So my name is Bryn Perry and I'm the president of Recovery, Rhode Island College's peer-to-peer support group. Recovery was founded by Roxanne Newman and some of her fellow psychology students a few years ago to exist as a bi-weekly meeting space, for people in all stages or relations to substance recovery. Over the last 2 years, especially as a result of the pandemic, we realized that recovery has evolved to become a space for individuals in recovery from a variety of backgrounds. I'm sorry, I'm just a little out of breath. Recovering from a slight cold on antibiotics, getting out of breath quickly. All right. From eating disorder recovery to domestic violence recovery to mental health struggles or even just everyday troubles, recovery has been able to exist as a place for support and recovery. Though we advocate primarily for stigmatization of substance recovery against the societal idea of an addict, we try and help each other understand that recovery is not a simple thing and requires both support and patience. Whether it be for assistance in learning how to administer Narcan or having someone to listen to when the need to use might arise, even if that person might not fully understand what you were going through, the members of Recovery always strive to be there. Over the last year, I have had the amazing opportunity to work with my fellow executive board members, Eva Contino, Brianna Aguiar, and Anira de Oliveira Asuzanco. A few months ago, Casey Smith from the Department of Student Activities on campus approached us about possibly creating an event like this, and it's definitely gone beyond my expectations in the absolute best way. I would like to thank the four of them, as well as my advisors, Dr. Beth Lewis and Dr. Jason Spaz, for their support with this event, and the folks over at Anchor TV. For helping us reach our virtual audience. Tonight we are going to introduce you to 7 individuals from a series of backgrounds with different experiences in substance use and its effects, including 2 RIC students and 2 RIC alumni. These individuals range from the children of substance users to the parents who were substance users. They come here tonight to bring you their stories and roads to recovery, and I hope you all listen with an open mind and an open heart. And without further ado, I would like to introduce Mr. Norman Smith to the stage.
I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Norman. I'm an alcoholic and I'm an addict. My daughter had mentioned to me a couple of months ago about coming here and speaking, and I've been in recovery for the last 8 years. And it took me a lifetime to get 8 years to get where I am today. A lifetime of unpleasant experiences, and I don't know where I'm going to start. I don't know where I'm going to end up. But what I will say tonight is, everything will be coming from my heart. It'll be my experiences that I've experienced along the way. I'm a little nervous, but I need to be up here. I need to do this. My purpose would be is if I can get to one person and just say something, and they plant the seed, or somewhere down the road give them an idea of, I remember what someone so-and-so said. I'm a member of a 12-step program. We're not supposed to be anonymous, but it is what it is. Let me start back from day one, before my 8 years. The day before I got sober, I was in my apartment, and I had no will to live. I lost all hope in everything, in humanity, and in myself. And it was important for me, the pain was so great that I totally convinced myself that this world would be a better place without me, and John, which I know for 44 years, my phone rang. He said, what are you doing? I'm going to be honest here, so. He said, what are you doing? I said, I'm trying to kill myself. And John I know all my life. We've been through hell and back. A lot of history. And John said to me, I'll call you right back. I'll come up with something. And he hung the phone up. And it had a little tiny bit of hope. And that's all I had. Little did I know he was going to call the cops, the fire department, and the rescue. And, you know, they were going to come to my house. And as sick as I was, I didn't even know they were there for me. I had no clue. You know, I was in a really bad mental state of mind, you know. And like addiction, it affects me personally. Physically, mentally, and spiritually. And I had none of that. You know, I'll touch base with you real. I'm going to jump around, but towards the end, when I had nothing and no hope, the only thing I had was a television, right? And I would change the channel. And if it was a game show and people were winning money, I had to change it because I had no money. If people were eating, I had to change it because I barely had any food. If people were laughing, I wasn't laughing. I had to change it. I didn't want to live anymore. I lost all the will to live. Again, it's not like it's my first rodeo, you know. Been in and out of treatments most of my life. So John sends the North Providence force after me, you know. And they came inside. They treated me with respect. I have to say that. I knew after a while, like when they walked in, I was like, you know, here I am, right? I got no hope, right? And they tried to help me. And at the same time, I'm telling them, oh, no, I'm all set. You know, I'm a genius. That's what my sponsor says. And he don't mean that in a funny way either. And he got a picture of my daughter. And he said, why do you want to do what you're doing when you got this beautiful little girl here? And I started crying. I still tell them, like, they were taking me anyway. But I said, Lo, I got no clean clothes and my garbage stunk, right? My place was a mess. I was living like a pig. And they changed my garbage, packed my bag, and off I went. You know, and as sick as I have the disease of addiction and the insanity of it is, I got into rescue, went to the hospital. 3 days later, now I'm a genius, I told you, right? I decided to check myself out. Now, a normal person sitting here listening to my story singer would say to themselves, well, what is he doing? Checking himself out. See, because all my life I made all my decisions. I played the doctor, I played a therapist, I played every part that I was needed to play to get along in society and life, the way I saw it, you know? And, you know, like, long story short, you know, I did get out of treatment, and I was on a lot of medications that I shouldn't have been on for a long time. And something happened. Don't know what it is, and I still don't know, and I don't ask questions. I didn't give it all away. I sold it. I had no money. Be honest here, I gotta be honest. And, this girl named Lori, she's from Newport, called me on the phone with Lori and John were in sync together on if Norma was gonna be around tomorrow or not. You know what I mean? Because they were so close to me. And they understood the disease of addiction because they're there, they've been there. You know what I mean? Lori says, come to the meeting in North Providence tonight. She says, I'm speaking. I didn't want to go. Lori wasn't speaking. Lori came from Newport to meet me at this particular place so I would get to a recovery meeting. And that's how it started. And I can tell you this now, in recovery for me, things come very slow. My first 6 months, I was kind of like unapproachable. I was mad at myself. I was mad at life. It was like, here we go again. I'm 50-something years old and it's all over. You know, I learned little by slow. The more I tell myself something negative, the more I believe it. So if I say that on a daily basis, like, I'm just a scumbag, I'm just a junkie, I'll become it. You know, I'll believe my thinking. You know, I no longer have first decision is off the wall, you know, kind of. My sponsor says I shouldn't be talking about sponsorship, but it don't matter. He says, no, you got no right to be thinking, who are you looking for? My best thinking got me where I ended up. You know what I mean? I needed somebody else's opinion. Today, I never had a perspective on different things than other people. You know, my first 5 years of being clean and sober, I was kind of like an angry person. And something happened, you know, and it's not that it's things that I didn't know. Like I grew up with morals, respect, you know, those kind of stuff that I had in my heart, but I didn't have access to it. You know, and I was angry all the time. It's clean, sober, and I'm angry. And it's not a good place to be either. And something happened. I don't know what. My life kind of started to turn around. And my sponsor, I'm going to say what I say.
Check it itself.
I'm talking to my sponsor, and he's known me for 8 years, and he says, you know you had a spiritual awakening, right? Now, I don't know what it was, but I knew what he was telling me. Because he could hear something that changed in my voice, and something that changed in me. John was so excited. My God, I just can't believe where you're at. And you know, I wouldn't have been able to get where I was if it wasn't for people who were just like me, go through things just like I do. See, I couldn't really like go to a neighbor and say, oh, you know, I feel like drinking and drugging today. What would the neighbor say? You know, it's like that, right? If I go up to somebody else in recovery and I explain to them how I feel, they understand how I feel. They know where I'm coming from. My life experiences with addiction and recovery, I can talk all night long. I can get you laughing and I can get you crying. You know, I was in a meeting last Wednesday with this kid Josh. Friday he was dead, just like that. I left the meeting one night. I went to Cello's. We're all sitting there. We knew a young kid of ours, a friend of ours. He was struggling, just like I used to struggle. Well, we're in Cello's and he just dropped on the floor. Boom, OD, right in front of us. We ran out to the car, me and Jared, because we both had the Narcan. He mentioned Narcan. And we Narcaned him. By the time the rescue came, he was alive. Now, you would think the average normal person would say, oh, geez, I hope you don't do that again. Guess where he was the next night? In the emergency room. You know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. You know? I try not to be judgmental. Like I hang in a lot of church basements, you know what I mean? And my experience tells me, it showed me and proven to me. Like a lot of times I'll be honest and I'll say this to anybody. I'll see somebody come walking through the door and I'll look at him and I'll go, oh my God, he's never gonna make it. Look at him. I don't even know the guy. I say, look at him, he never gonna make it. You know, I can tell he's just like I was. I can tell by his actions. Mr. Know-it-all, I'm a genius, right? And then it could be a guy in the corner with 30 years, hasn't picked up a drink or a drug. You know what ultimately happens is, and I've seen it, and it's proven to me, the guy with 30 years picks up a drink or a drug and dies. This kid walked through the door that I didn't think there was any hope for, ends up helping me in the long run. You know what I mean? If I don't change my perspective on how I think about things in life, then I'm going to lose out. You know, like I said, I can go on and on and on. You gotta let me know when time's up. I'll share you a quick story. I go to meetings, and that's pretty much obvious. I went to a meeting for 2 years, the same place in Smithfield. And this kid Joe, I hated him. I couldn't stand him. I wouldn't give him the right time of day. Right? So one day he started yelling at me like, you know, he's a big Marine. I couldn't do nothing about it. I hated him even more. So now I'm gonna leave the meeting, I'm never gonna come back. I said, I let him chase me out of the bar. Now, like everybody knew what went on. I was like upset, I had all these feelings and emotions, I didn't know what to do with them. So at the break, and somebody says, oh, Joe's behind you, he's coming to see you. Now this confrontation's coming, right? Listen to what happened. He pulls me aside, he says, no, can I talk to you? I said, yeah. He said, Norman, I'm so sorry for what I said and what I did. He said, I'm going through this and I'm going through that, and I'm struggling, and I didn't mean to do that. I'm so sorry. And I hugged him like I never hugged anybody else before. And he became my best friend like that. You know, because I was judging him. You know, and when I judge people, me personally, it usually has something to do with me, that I may see something in somebody else that I may see in myself and choose not to look at, or whatever. And then sometimes I just don't like people. But I have that option to do that. You know what I mean? I just don't like people. I want to tell you about life and death, and then I'll shut up. This has to do with the same meeting that I was in Smithfield, right? I say this because a lot of reasons, you know? I can think of so many. But the meeting, particular meeting, got out at 9 o'clock. And I sat in front of Stevie. His name was Stevie Montebato. I sat in front of Stevie. 9 o'clock, 6 of us, all congregated in the parking lot. We talked for quite a while, maybe half hour, 45 minutes. Stevie was clean and he was sober. But something was going on inside in his brain, in his mind. He was carrying around a load that he didn't know what to do with, you know? And now I look back like, I'm not God, I could have never made a difference in the outcome. But Stevie drove from Smithfield to the Newport Bridge, and he jumped off, just like that. The reason why I say that is, I see so many people walk into these halls that I go to, and they're just like me, because I know. And I'll ask people, I'll look right at somebody and I'll know when something's up with you. I'll say, how you doing? You know what they say? I'm fine, I'm good. It's very hard for us, for me, at different times. When I'm going through something, I'm struggling to tell somebody. And what I've learned is when I'm like that, and I finally let it out, you know what the bottom line is, and I think it goes for all of us. I just needed somebody to listen to me. Because as I'm letting it out, I feel a little better. And that ain't as bad. You know, anytime I go through something that somebody else has already been through, they'll say, oh, you're making too much out of it, don't worry. In 2 weeks or 2 months, you'll look back, and you'll laugh at it. Well, I'm not in the mood to laugh right now, so don't tell me that. I don't want to hear it, you know what I mean? That's like if I'm struggling and you say to me, well, if you don't like the way you're feeling, change your thinking, right? Don't tell me that when I'm struggling, you know? It's my thinking, you know? Some people wake up in the morning spiritual, and they do jumping jacks, and they look out the window when it's raining out, and they say, oh, the sun's behind the clouds, and, you know, me, when I wake up, I'm already blocking half down the street. I gotta slow down and put things into perspective. You know, I've learned too, like with the judging people and being in recovery, the people that I may look at the most are like, I normally wouldn't hang with that person. I don't think I'd go out to eat with that person. Whatever it is, those are the people that help me out the most. One more thing, then I'll shut up. During the pandemic, there was no place to go for recovery. We were outside in the wall parking lot, sitting in chairs, share recovery. This kid shows up. He's about 25 years old. He's got long hair, he's got feathered earrings, jewelry all over, nails like this. I couldn't tell what he was. All I said to myself was, look at this kid. Look at this kid. Right? Here I go judging people. My perception. I was never at peace with me, or where I was, what I was doing, who I was with. And today I have that. And trust me, I could wake up tomorrow morning and you might not want to talk to me. See, because sometimes, like for me, recovery, what works for me today might not work tomorrow. You know, and what works for you tomorrow might not work for you today, and vice versa. So there's always something somewhere, there's always a message that you never know where the next message is coming from, and I've been proven that. So it changes my perception of people, you know. One more thing.
No, I think you.
Good?
Yeah, I think you. I love you.
I love you too. You know, I never did a random act of kindness before and not said nothing and went on my merry way. And I shouldn't be saying it now because I do it and I shouldn't be telling you. But I do it and I go on my merry way. And I do it and go on my merry way. And what happened was I woke up one day and went, wow, I know what they were talking about. You know what I mean? So next time, you know, if you get a chance to be kind to somebody you normally ordinarily wouldn't be kind to, it will pay off for you in a positive way. That's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you, Norman, for that. That was really great. And next, I would like to introduce Sarah Minkachi.
Well, I'm pretty loud. I don't usually speak into a microphone. No, I'm here for right now.
You can pull it off if you want to hold it.
I guess I'm holding it. Okay. So, thank you, Bryn, for inviting me and for recovery. This is nice. I haven't done this in a while. So I brought notes. I didn't feel like my old stories really would serve me very much anymore at this point. Because I've come quite a long way, and I am happy to be here. So, to start, I suppose, kind of at the beginning, I have had a very, very long, sordid love affair with drugs for pretty much my entire life. I didn't really have many consequences to it up until I was about 25 or so. It was kind of casual. I could get away with it. Nobody was mad at me. I was able to handle myself pretty well, I thought anyways. And yeah, so that's about that. We can skip through that. So when I was about 25 years old, I moved to New York. I was a married mother of 3 and had this great idea that I was going to get myself into a pain management program. I was going to make all this money, and I had my husband at the time, he was on board, he did it too. You know, it was just, my story is not unusual from how so many other people's story is. So I had valid excuses, you know, I have medical conditions, so I got right in, yep, no problem, here you go. I had all of these pills, and it's so easy, you know, well, it has my name on it, and my insurance covers it, so it's free, so I'm not losing money, I'm not spending money on it. You know, you feel like it's okay. And that kind of got out of control pretty quickly. I was starting to become, I suddenly realized I was an addict when I would run out of pills, and I would be sick, and I would have to call out of work, and I would cancel plans with people if I didn't have what I needed to get myself through the day and out the door and put a smile on my face. I was untrustworthy and unreliable and very selfish and still thinking I was managing to keep it together. I thought, you know, nobody really notices, you know, I can play off being sick. I mean, I thought I was pulling it off, but I don't really think that I was. I wasn't fooling many. And I have to say that I have been dope sick more times than I could count, that I could ever bother to even want times in my life, I wouldn't say that I was suicidal, but I did not care if I lived or died. That's how sick I was. And that is how sick people get from drugs. They don't care if they live or die. That is the reason why so many people cannot get clean. Because the thought of being sick, that is how awful that feeling is that you cannot possibly get clean. You can't get your life back. You can't be the reliable, loving family member, friend, worker, person that you were. Because that's how awful it feels. Sorry. So, I didn't really need them so bad. So in September, well, short story long, the pills run out, as they always do, you know, and I ended up getting hooked on heroin and did that for a while. It seemed to suit me. I don't know, that just was kind of the natural progression. Like I said, my story is very typical of a lot of other people's. And I was still functioning, I was still going to work, I was doing functioning, in quotes. I'm calling it functioning. And I kind of just rode that train out for a little while, and then in 2017, in September of 2017, September 7th, I suffered a massive overdose in my house. One of my children was home. My former husband and his mother performed CPR on me. They Narcaned me 3 times. They cracked my sternum. They kept me alive. They saved my life. The ambulance came. I go to the hospital. Suddenly, I woke up in the ambulance and I was like, holy shit, I just overdosed. I had never overdosed before. So I arrived at the hospital and they had me there for about 45 minutes. The police came and spoke to me and they sent me home and sent me on my way. Now, I don't know what happened to me. I don't really recall anything when I was dead for 14 minutes, but something definitely changed. I had a spiritual awakening in that moment, and by the grace of God, I haven't touched it again, so that's good news. And the next day, I got 12 steps. Someone knocked on my door, somebody that I know, and he said to me, listen, I want you to get better, and I'm going to help take care of your children, and I want you to be there. I will either help them plan your funeral, or I will help take care of them, I will help you so that you can help them. So fortunately, I did. I went to a fantastic program, and it was very holistic, and it was super cool. A lot of funding. Unfortunately, my insurance only covered it for 2 weeks, so that kind of sucked, but it was a great experience. And I walked in there and I said, what have you got for me? I was so excited to be there. I just wanted everything. I'm like, come fix me, fix me, fix me. What do I need to do? And a lot of people that were there didn't really like my bubbly attitude because a lot of people were really miserable and didn't want to be there, which is also typical. But I did, and I made the most of it, and I carried out my program. You know, I worked the program, I did an outpatient program, but very importantly, I'm a very spiritual person, so I had to look into things like that. Like, what is going to keep me here? Like, what is going to keep me clean? What's going to give me focus? What is my purpose in life? Why am I here? And that was something that I also had to deal with, was a lot of survivor's guilt for other people that don't make it, that should be here, for the people that saved my life and had to go through such a traumatizing experience because of me. They kept me alive. I wasn't there. I can't even imagine what was going on in my home when that was going on, because I was there, but I was dead. So I still carry that to this day. But since I've been clean, I have made great efforts to reconcile with all the shitty things that I did to everybody and to myself. I still feel, you know, a sense of like imposter syndrome and like this identity crisis. Like I'm still finding out who I am because, like I said, for so long, since I was 13 years old, I was using. So I don't really know. So I have to go back and say, who am I? Am I the 10-year-old person that I was before I started using? Because I'm not that person either. So I have worked really hard. I need to rebuild my integrity, and that's what I've been working for. I took a vow of honesty, no matter how small or trivial something might be. You will ask me, do you like my hair? And I will say no if I don't like your hair. I don't have, I need to just do that. Maybe not, I'm not mean, but, but things like this, like the simplest, smallest things with being honest and rebuilding my relationships with people. I have been able to rebuild my relationship with my ex-husband. That didn't work out, so, but you know, we are close now. But I lost custody of my children over this. I lost my marriage. I lost the home that I built. I lost my entire life as I knew it is gone. It has been gone. That's not my life anymore. That's not me anymore, and that's not my life anymore. So I decided, since I told you, drugs, I've had a long relationship with drugs throughout my life, I decided I'm going to go to school, and I'm going to help people and become a substance abuse counselor. I want to work with people in prisons. I want to work with the homeless population. I want to work with any of y'all that might need help, anybody. Because that's what I know, that's why I'm here, and that is my purpose. That's why I was saved. That's why I made it, and a lot of people don't. So that I can try to do that for the next person. So I go to school here now. I'm almost done, and I'm just looking forward to the future. But I still wake up. I've had a lot of therapy. I'm still in therapy. I have to take medications that I'm gonna have to take for the rest of my life. My heart is all messed up. I suffered brain damage from my overdose. So these are things that I'm still learning to come back from. Like I'm still trying to I'm just trying to take better care of myself in general, which has been hard with COVID. But if I had to say anything, it's just that everybody is worth saving and everybody is redeemable. And I truly, truly believe that. And that's it. That's all I guess.
Thank you, Sarah, for that. And next, I'm going to introduce Taylor Bruchette to the stage.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Hi. Oh, okay, there we go. I'm trying to figure out how close to be to the So I'm a relatively recent RIC graduate. Finally finished in, I think it was 2020, but truthfully, I don't remember because it was 2020 crazy. Yeah, it was 2020. And I have had maybe a 7 or 8 year struggle so far, and it will continue to be a struggle probably for the rest of my life because that's how these kinds of things usually go somehow. With substance abuse, particularly with alcohol. And I think the first time I realized that I had substance abuse problems was after I went to a party with some friends, and it was supposed to be a casual good time. And I woke up at 3 a.m. in the hospital because I had completely passed out, and they were pretty concerned that I was not going to make it. After that, I did a lot of counseling, like our lovely friend over there had just mentioned, and having someone there for me initially and having that counseling was super, super helpful, and it got me to a slightly better place, but not a perfect place, because substance abuse is something that, you know, it's a continual struggle. We always have to keep working on ourselves and trying and just building ourselves up to be as good as we possibly can be. So something that I think is really important with anyone under the sun having, you know, issues of this sort, with addiction, with substance abuse, is building your support system. So when I was in the hospital at 3 a.m. after a very bad night, I had called my mom, woke her up at 3 in the morning, you know, horrible, horrible experience for her. And I had, you know, kind of told her what happened and told her that I thought I needed help. And the hard thing about that phone call was not even the initial just saying it out loud, because I was just in such a state of, you know, shock and spiritual awakening that I realized I needed change. But the hard thing about that phone call was after the fact, I didn't receive that support from my mom, from my dad, from my family members. They almost didn't believe that I had a substance abuse problem, because at the time I was a 19, almost 20-year-old, relatively smart female in college. They didn't think that that type of thing happened to, you know, normal people. So I had to find support through other means, and going to groups like Recovery and, you know, other sorts of groups really helped me build a foundation to start on, to go on my journey of recovery, and having people there that can listen to you and, you know, not even say things are going to be okay or it'll get better, but someone to listen and just say, that is awful. Yeah, that's really not fun. You know, you sometimes need that to keep going. It's not always sunshine and rainbows in your head. And having someone sit with you in that discomfort and tell you, like, yeah, that's really valid and hard, and I'm sorry, can be so much more validating than just the constant messages of things will get better and keep trying. Not that those messages aren't important, but sometimes we need people that understand us to provide that support. As I've continued on said journey, I have been able to rely a little less on support groups like this one, partially just because I've, you know, built them into some of my close friendships now, as opposed to, you know, having to go out and see other people and strangers and deal with that anxiety. And I think that having those friends there is one of the things that has kept me on a relatively okay path. There are definitely still days that are hard, and there are days that are easier and I'm, doing really good, on top of the world, feel super strong in my recovery. So if you are looking for, support, people to help you out, you have to remember that it might come from unexpected places. As our other friend had mentioned, you can't judge people and think, oh, this person won't offer me the support I need, or, I should only seek support from, these individuals that I can think of right now
who are friends with me, because when you go down that recovery journey, all of those things can change. People that you thought would be there for you can turn on you and, think less of you, and people who you once judged can end up being some of your closest friends and your major support system. And if I can,
say anything important tonight, I would hope that it would be that your support system will keep you going, and sometimes you might let those people down, but if they're really there for you, they will always help you pick up the pieces. And it is so important to build that support system. And when you first start a recovery journey, or restart it, or continue it after a new move, or are just looking, for some more assistance, keep reaching out to people and working on building that support system. There are so many people that have gone through similar experiences to what anyone might be going through with substance abuse. I think the largest lie the universe is trying to tell us is that we are alone. And if you try to sit in that aloneness, it can be really hard to crawl out of that dark place. So, that's all I have.
thank you very much to Taylor for that, and I'm going to pass the mic over to John once I get this out of the camera's way.
All right, so I was thinking, a couple days ago, how do I introduce myself? So when I go to, where I go for my recovery, I introduce myself as I'm John and I'm a grateful recovering addict, because that's what I am, right? So this is a little different. I was listening to everybody and I could so identify. And, no one was telling you about, me calling the cops on them. That was my only option, right, at that time. And I learned that from people I hang out with in recovery. And I will tell you that probably 3 to 4 years before I made that phone call, he was the one at Butler, trying to encourage me to get clean, right? And being in that place where I wanted to die. And I'll tell you what I've learned about wanting to die, wanting to commit suicide and die. And I learned this a long time ago and I forgot it, and I had to learn it again. Because I'm a firm believer that those of us that, want to die and want to try to commit suicide, we just really want to stop the pain. And we don't know how. And we tell ourselves a lie that death is the only way out. And I can tell you that's a bunch of bull, right? So, I'll try and make this quick, right? I believe that I have a disease. I believe in the disease concept. I believe that it's in my genetics. That something in me is different from those people that can go out on a weekend and drink and then go another week without picking up something. That is not me. One is too many and 1,000 is never enough. When I do something that triggers this chemical reaction in my brain that tells me it's good, all I know is I want more. That's all I know. I want the next one, right? So, and you know, I have this bone disease. It's genetic, right? It's brittle bone disease. So, you know, my body got introduced to narcotics at like the age of 3. Now, that's not why I'm an addict. I just told you I'm an addict because it's in my genetics. That's my belief. But certainly, you know, getting some narcotics at the age of 3 probably didn't help me a whole lot, right? So anyway, you know, my first self-administered drug was at 16, and my first detox I was 27, right? And I go to a detox that I thought I was too good to go to, right? Only junkies go there, and I put myself in there, and I stayed for a week. I got introduced to a drug in there, you know, to help me get off the other drugs, which I thought was pretty hilarious, right? Give a drug addict drugs, help get off drugs. That's just me. You know, and I swear to you, I was out 20 minutes, and the phone rang, and it was someone saying, I got what you need, and it was not a matter of contemplating where I just came from. It was not a matter of thinking, oh, I really shouldn't do this. This was not a matter of thinking logically or giving it any thought. It's a reaction, right? He said, I got what you need, and I said, I'm on my way. And it was that simple. That's just the way I'm wired, right? So I went and I picked up and I got high, and that's when it hit me like, you know, Norman, you know, the saying we've learned, you know, insanity is repeating the same thing over and over and expecting different results, right? And I knew about the fellowship that I go to. A lot of my friends disappeared off the corner. If you disappeared off my corner, you were either dead in jail or you got help, right? You know, that's just the way it was. And so I knew where to go, you know, and I found my place, and I stayed clean for a long time. I'm a firm believer that the 12-step fellowships that are out there, and the one that I swear by, is the best option for anybody. And this is just my opinion. I know there's a lot of options, and I'm not shooting them all down. I'm just telling you what works for me. But it's the best option, I believe, for anybody who wants to get clean, stay clean, and recover, and enjoy life. You know what I mean? Because I hang out with people who totally get, like Norman was saying, who totally get when I start talking about really crazy shit I did when I was, you know, when I was using, or to get that next one, and they say, yeah, me too. I get that, me too. You know, so, you know, I get that, you know, and they get that. And, you know, our 2 daughters are here, me and Norman, in the back over there, right? And, you know, I mean, we talk about it, we kind of laugh, but, you know, it wasn't so funny. But, you know, there were times when we were watching them together at my house, and who was nodding off first, you know? And they, you know, luckily we were safe in the house, but, you know, that's the way it was. And here's how I know that the disease of addiction is so powerful, right? That I need a lot of help. It's not a matter about, like, we talk about being powerless, right? Like any parent in this room would agree with what I'm about to say. When you become a parent, you know you would give your life for your child without hesitation, right? You want the best for them, right? Maybe it's the same for, you know, a sister, a brother, parent, right? Definitely for your children. But when I pick up one, all I know is the next one is the most important thing. And everything else comes after that. And I never ever want to forget that, because that reminds me what I'm up against when I'm using, right? And so, so my life is really, really good. I ended up picking up, and you know, like I said, and it took me 14 years to get clean again. And it was far, far worse than it was the first time around. You know, like they told me it would be, right? These people I hang out with, they told me. And it was far, far worse. And you know, I almost lost everything, you know. You know, the wife, the house, you know, I was unemployable, couldn't drive anymore, you know, in and out of detoxes and dual diagnosis units, being locked up. My last day was for like 2.5 months, and it was because they were afraid to let me go, and I was afraid to leave. Right? But I found my way back to my people. Right? Trying to keep it anonymous. To my people. I found my way back to my people, and they welcomed me back, and they helped me get one day. That's what they did. And then they helped me get that next day, and I started to wake up. And I will tell you, right? I'm in IT for a living. I've been doing it for like 35, maybe almost 40 years now, right? And I work for a real big company. Ironically, I work for a lab that does drug testing all day. That's not something I don't know what it is, right? But anyway, I'm in IT, so like you're gonna have a little smarts, right? You're doing that kind of stuff. In the end of this last time, and I say this, and I'm not exaggerating. I couldn't make toast. I remember sitting in my kitchen wanting to make toast, and I couldn't figure it out. My head was so messed up. Like I knew, okay, I had to put the bread in the toaster and maybe put some butter. I knew that, but I just couldn't figure it out. You know what I mean? Couldn't do it. So, long story short, now I've been at this company 13 years. Still have the house. Me and my wife will be married 29 years this September. My children, who, that's my soft spot. I always want to cry when I start thinking about them, but, yeah, they're the ones that, I think about when I still clean. My son, giving us our first grandchild, naming her after me, man, I would have never imagined that. Right? Never in a million years. I remember my oldest one used to tell me and my wife, you guys should just get divorced, man. I mean, our house, in trouble. You should just get divorced. And this past June of 2021, my daughter, my oldest one, got married, and she asked me to perform the ceremony. It was on my 60th birthday. What a way to celebrate my 60th birthday, right? And then my youngest daughter who still lives with us just, makes me proud every day. And I often wonder, do they really forgive me? Do they have resentments and all that stuff? It's kind of natural. So you know what I do? I just keep getting another day. I keep trying to get one more day and trying to be the best guy I can. And some days I do good, and some days I don't. But man, I can tell you my life has never been so good. So it has been 15 years for me since I've used. I could listen, someone mentioned about having physical conditions. I just told you I have brittle bone disease. I could give you all kinds of excuses why I could take. I've broken probably 70 bones in my lifetime. I'm 60 years old. And I have no clue as to why I wake up every day and I'm not in pain. But I can tell you that I'm grateful, and I will, as of right now, I don't use it as an excuse. I could get more scripts than, Purdue Pharma could probably write out, but I'm just looking for another day. And I'm a firm believer that the 12-step fellowship is the way, for me, that I stay clean and I learn how to recover, I don't know what else to say. It's the best thing that's ever happened to me. My life is good. Like Norman, spoke about, the disease of addiction has affected my whole family. I got aunts and uncles and cousins, and some have died from this, and some are in recovery. The last thing I'll share with you is like a few years ago. One of my uncles came to me. He's in his 70s. He's in his 70s. Had a wild life, life, movies are made out of. They're really serious, insane. And he said, I think I want to go to one of those meetings. I said, you know what? I think that's a good idea. And he asked me to give him his first year to die, and he's been still doing it 3 years later. He's in his late 70s. And one day on the phone, he said, you know what, John? My life has never been so good. That's all I need. I know what I'm doing. last a lot of people for a long, long time. Been around for a long, long time. So. And that's it.
All right, thank you very much to John for that. And once I figure out how to get on the table, I'm going to invite Brian Terry up to the stage. Woo.
Boy, I need a drink. I'm absolutely terrified to be up here. I speak a lot, but I am absolutely terrified. And tonight, Eric's very smart ass. And my daughter, when I came in tonight, my daughter grabbed the phone from me. Make sure I silence it. So you won't hear this. So, and I kind of blew it over here because I was messing with it at night. But I also want, before I start, I want to congratulate my daughter. She was accepted into the BSW program today.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
I hope I leave you with something tonight, and give you a quick message. My name is Brian Terry. So, ironically, in 1990, I received my master's here in counseling. And the focus, ironically, again, was alcohol and substance abuse. It's only because I took the courses that were available on that particular night that I ended up with that focus. And at that point, I was still knowing the fact that I had a problem. I would, as much as they were teaching me, I was changing the answers. If there was an assessment, I erased it. The answers to it wouldn't look like I had a problem. I've been sober for over 31 years. I want you to recognize that, that if you have a problem, to go get help. I grew up with it. It was prevalent in my family. My mom and dad both abused it. And in my family, it's run the gamut. We've had issues with alcohol, prescription drugs, huffing, inhaling toxic fumes, cocaine. It was all there. My own issues, I ignored them. I tried to mask them. I lost my mother at a very 71. And it was tough because my mother was especially good to me. We had I wasn't an easy kid to raise because there was so much going on in that house. There was physical abuse, mental abuse, cruelty. When there was drinking, there was police at the house. was crashing glasses, furniture. I had a fist fight with my father. And, you know, my parents separated several times, so we had to, as I was, as we were growing up, we had to go and live with different relatives. And it was tough because I had low self-esteem, self-confidence. We were told in our house to not tell anybody when we went to school. Don't tell them what happened this weekend. And I would say, how do you not tell them when they already know? When the police have been outside your house and you could hear the stuff going on inside the house. I remember telling my parents when I was about, I don't know, 4 or 5 years old, I wasn't going to drink because I knew what was happening in that house, and I didn't like it. So I knew even then that I shouldn't. But when I got to be about 14, 15 years old, I'm drinking. I'm in bars. I was tall enough and big enough to be able to do that. And I didn't get drunk, but it certainly was tough on us all. Because I was fighting all the time. I went to 7 schools right at the high school. It was, I grew up angry, socially awkward, withdrawn. I was stubborn, but I had a tremendous Irish grit. So it got me through. My father left when probably about the time I was 15, 16 years old. And, I had to focus on, helping my mother, and I focused on sports, and I focused on working. And I did it, and I didn't drink. But again, I was not social at all. And that affected us, especially me, because, my mother would say, well, Brian, why don't you go outside? So, why don't you be more active with the other kids? And I couldn't, because I just kept getting into trouble. I remember going to, Federal Hill, and they would give you they would tell you, here's a quarter, kid, go deliver this bag to to this place. And in those days you were told, don't look in the bag, because you would get into trouble. And sure enough, I looked in the bag, I saw money. I took money, and I ended up getting beaten for that. I did tell my parents. But I was hanging with the wrong crowd. And finally, when I did get to high school, I focused on school, work, sports. And I just had to keep working, because if I didn't work, I was drinking. And it was the binge drinking. It really changed the way someone should grow up. And when I went to my first bachelor party. I was 18 years old, and I said, inside we were going to do Boilermakers. And I said, what are Boilermakers? You take a shot and put it in the beer. And after my first Boilermaker, I said, what do you need this little glass for? And I just poured it in. And I got so drunk that I don't remember what happened. I do know that my friend brought me home, told me to the door. We had swollen doors. And I banged down every step. And then another time I got drunk and I went to and I went home and my mother woke me up and she started hitting me with a broom. And I couldn't figure out why. She was hitting me with a broom. I said, what? You drove drunk last night. You drove drunk last night. And I said, no, I didn't, Mom. I didn't drink and drive. You absolutely did too. She's going downstairs. She's trying to take the sight out of my eyes. I parked crooked in the driveway onto the other neighbor's driveway. The door was still on the driver's side. The car was still running. I had 2.5 wieners on the dashboard and a cup of coffee and a beer. And I did finish the wieners and a coffee. But there were so many nights like this, and I could have killed somebody. And thankful to God that I didn't. When I graduated from college, I quickly found a job at a CPA firm. Unfortunately, that left me with more free time on my hands. So what ends up happening is I'm drinking more. And sometimes I was drinking by myself. And I binge drink. I drank until I got sick. Or until there was nothing left. And I couldn't take it because I was going into the CPA firm under the influence. And I never told anybody that before. I didn't like what I was doing. I didn't like it. And so I decided I was going to quit. And my mother said, Brian, why don't you go work with kids, with difficult kids, delinquents. And, I did. Okay? I gotta tell you, there were good things and bad things about that. I got the job, no problem. I worked with those kids. But there were so many hours, I just kept working and working and working. And then I went to school and I was going to study counseling, anything to avoid drinking, because I wasn't going to admit that I had a problem with alcohol. So I got my master's, but I still didn't admit I had a problem. I see myself. It's like I can see it on the board, and I'm going, no, I did that. No, I didn't. I did that. No, I didn't do that. I would just convince myself that I did it, and I didn't have a problem with alcohol and substance abuse. And what's interesting is that my siblings and I, we all ended up working with kids. We all worked with kids that needed somebody because of, and I believe that's the way we grew up. It was, I can't tell you I didn't love my parents. I loved them more than anything. But that house was so horrific that I I avoid everything. I avoided everything for years. I avoided social gatherings where there was drinking. I avoided everything, you know. And you know, again, I started working at the Rhode Island Training School, and I kept working hours. And the more hours I spent there, the better I got what I was doing. And it got to the point where you know, I was connecting with the kids. You know, I got with them. I could understand where they were, why they were there. And it got to the point where the family court judges were just sending them to me specifically. Send them to Brian Terry, send them to Brian Terry, send them to Brian Terry. And I got to be where the other units at the Rhode Island Training School had 20 kids in them. Brian Terry had 45. So it was, you know, so I ended up just working more and more. And my wife is putting up with it. And it's causing problems in the house because I'm addicted to work now. Now I get so much work and I'm addicted to it. And I just can't stop. I gotta know what's happening there all the time. And, you know, it caused friction with us. It caused friction with our kids. Because I you know, to this day I still struggle with it. And you know, we recently celebrated our 31st wedding anniversary last June. And of course I get a call. I got to go on a meeting, and my wife says, texts me, she says, 31 years married to Rhode Island Training School. And, you know, and she's right. You know, I just substituted one addiction for another. But I'm a lucky man. I got a family that puts up with it. You know. They put up with me. You know, again, I get angry easy. I got a short temper. I'm miserable. You know, a lot of times I'm isolated. I don't go anywhere too much. I'm trying. You know, I'm 60 years old. I'm trying. You know, I was always good about taking the kids out. I was always good about that. And again, my wife, I think we put up, and you know, someone else would have left me, I think. But again, it was. Again, I had a tough. You know, I grew up tough, but that's no excuse for the way I am right now. I'm successful. What I do. My wife and I brought up 2 wonderful kids. One's a lawyer, one's a teacher. We've all gone into the social service field. You know, it's, you know, like I said, I'm still working. I'm joining everything. I'm joining the Masons, I'm joining the Elks, I'm joining anything, the Shriners, anything. I'm just trying to find my niche somewhere. But again, but as I leave you, I just want to tell you that if you know someone has a problem, don't ignore it. Don't do what I did, and just kind of say, change the answers and not say that you have a problem. You don't have a problem because you know we all have our faults. And believe me, my wife and kids can give you a list of mine. But don't ignore your issue. You know, try to get some help. And I guess that's all I have for you. Thank you for listening.
Bernier, sorry. I'm so bad at last name, I'm sorry.
I'm very nervous. Hello, everybody. Thank you, Casey, for inviting me. When Casey asked me, I was a little hesitant, but like a few people have said tonight, if I can plant the seed and maybe spread the word of recovery, that's what I would like to do. Last Tuesday, I celebrated 14 years of continuous recovery from alcohol. So it has not been an easy road of recovery, and I didn't get here that easily either. I'm going to skip around, so I'm sorry, and I'm a little nervous here. But I just, I grew up with, my dad was a businessman, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, 2 siblings, just, a whole household. As the lady over here said earlier, she mentioned about normal people not having an addiction, and I think sometimes we get lost in the fact that, addiction does not discriminate. It's not discriminate against race, gender, socioeconomic status. It just, I think that gets lost somewhere. It just, I knew high school, I was trying to fit in, wanted to drink and be with cool kids, and boy, did I drink and fit in, I guess. I don't know. I went to a party, really got myself in a lot of trouble. I actually was grounded for a long time, till last week, actually. But, I'm disappointed by my parents, but, it didn't stop me. I still kept at it. I turned 21, and, green light to keep going. And I knew I didn't drink like my friends. Like, I was drinking before going out to drink, and they were just kind of like, hey, let's go out. And I'm like, I'm already there. So I just was always ahead of the game, and I knew being, kicked out of bars and kicked out of Christmas parties and driven home and being carried home was not a typical way to be. So I knew that this was not right, but it kept escalating as I went along. Somebody mentioned earlier, not having consequences. I'm not sure how I got through without, and I'm thankful for when I look back at things that could have, should have happened, that they didn't. I'm not proud of things that I've done, but I'm thankful that I can get past them today. Switch jobs, switch relationships, but my drinking was escalating to the point where it was, nights, weekends, until it became a job. And it was a job in the fact that I was waking up with, with the shakes. And in order to stop the shakes, I needed to drink. And I was working as a phlebotomist for a while, and I don't know, I don't want anybody coming at me with a needle that has the shakes. So I just decided to get a different job. Instead of quit drinking, just switch job. So I decided I would get an office job, and I started bringing nips to work because that's what you should do, when you work. And so I had lunchtime, I was, going out to get nips, to just stop the shake. It was becoming a job. And I don't know how I continued to hold jobs and was functioning and barely. And, it was 2007. I had been in a relationship, and that dissolved, but she became a very good friend of mine. And I had started to bring up the fact that I thought that that I was having a problem. And she called me one day and she said, you need to pack your stuff, I'm ready to go. And I said, no. And then wasn't an easy making it so much easier. I got on that, but I went, and my family did not know. I was an adult, and and I was 27, and to call my mom and tell her, and they were scared for me and whatnot. But I went 3 times that year, and I was in and out of AA, and okay, I would go to AA, and I hear these people say, oh, I had 5 years, and keep it 5 minutes, you have 5 years, okay? But he kept saying, just keep the drink down, and keep coming, and you'll get it, and great things are gonna happen. And I was like, okay, all right. And so, but I kept struggling. And I went on interviews, which if anybody does not know what that is, it's a pill, and you drink on it, you get very sick, and that would always scare me. But I would go off of that. I played a game with that for a while, which was not okay. And I just kept trying different things. None of that was working. And so this went on for a little while, and I met my now wife online, and I did not tell her anything. We met at a bar, okay? And I didn't say anything right away, and I did end up telling her shortly after, hey, I had a problem, and I can't drink. And she said, okay, I don't need to drink. And that was fine, but I still couldn't stop, and I kept drinking. And this went on for a few months into our relationship, and she finally passed out, and just not in great space, and she had a son, son, and she finally said, I'm not living like this. She had last straw, and said, you need to stop, or you need to go. And I stopped that day, March 8, 2008. That was the last time I picked up a drink. And this has not been easy. This recovery road is not easy. I believe that there are multiple pathways to recovery. For me, I started working out, I started going to therapy. I recently started going back to AA meetings and therapy. This 14th year of recovery was one of my hardest ones. I suffer with anxiety, depression, and last year it really ramped right the hell up. And it reminded me that if I don't pay attention to my recovery, I can lose it. So I really had to it was a huge reality check for me to make sure I'm paying attention, because I can lose it very easily. So I said I'm going to get myself back in therapy and do the things that I know will keep me back on track. And I need to stay here. I need to stay on track, because I know how easily I can lose it. My life today, I wouldn't change for anything. It's not easy. Life comes and goes, and ebbs and flows, and it's not always great. But I wouldn't change anything. Sunday I get to spend the entire day with my whole family. We got engaged. And I cried all day. My family made fun of me for crying, and no one was fussing. It's right. And I just was like, I just cried because I'm so happy to be in recovery and to be able to experience this stuff. Because if I was drinking, I wouldn't be present. I probably wouldn't be there, and I get to do that today. And I just feel so fortunate for the life I have today. I'm in a field that allows me to work with other people and help other people too. So I just keep doing what I do, and I wake up tomorrow and do it again, hopefully. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa, for that. And last but certainly not least, I would like to introduce Betty Field.
I'm also extremely child of just parents who really liked children. While I was a kid, my parents were partiers. They went out. My parents got married on St. Patrick's Day. We were as Irish as about Irish can be. So just growing up, it was like party, party, party. I became an AA child very young. I would go with my grandfather before school. I would go, to the night meetings. It was just in my family. I'm almost 22 years old now, and I still see people at the supermarket, and they're like, "You have Bobby's Grand Dakota," and I'm like, "I am, and I am a grown adult now," and they still remember me. So AA are maybe some of the nicest people I've ever met in my whole life. They're the first people to say happy birthday to me on my birthday on Facebook. They're the first people to message me congratulations for anything. As again, I said earlier, my parents were partiers. My mom kind of slowed down after my little sister was born. She's 6 years younger than me. And my dad continued. My dad was a manager at a golf course, so alcohol was just his life. It was everywhere. He worked 2 jobs, and both of them contained alcohol. So I just thought, that's what dad does. And I remember it was the day before my first day of high school, and we were going to go school supply shopping. And instead of my dad coming with us, he looked at my grandfather and went, "I think I'm going to go to AA with you today." And I will remember that I was probably like 14, and now I'm 22 years old, and I still remember that day. And someone also mentioned just like the guilt of like doing that to your child. And I'll never blame him for anything he ever did, because there was nothing, it's a disease, there's nothing that he did that can make me angry at him. And there's no time that he didn't spend with us that made him a bad parent. And I think all this time, it's been 8 years, he still holds that guilt. Someone else mentioned it's just a day at a time. And he has a day at a time tattooed across his arms. And just, there's no guilt behind it. Also, turning 21 was kind of scary for me. It runs in the family. My dad's whole side is in AA. My best friend for life, I met at AA when I was 3 years old, because we were both AA kids. She is still my best friend. She will always be my best friend. Her son is my nephew. And we just grew up, and we were always told, "You're gonna be like us." So turning 21 scared the living crap out of me, because I knew when I was like 17 through 20, I would go out with my friends and I would party, but I was underage, so there was no way I could get it for myself. So turning 21 and knowing that it was fully in my control scared the crap out of me. And it's talking to my dad and going through and having conversations with him that if it does become a problem, to reach out, because he'll always be there, and there's nothing you can change. And I don't want to make this too long. I know there's questions, so I don't want to go down. Probably. Everybody spoke. I'm not sure if anybody has any questions for anyone in particular. Do we have any questions? No question. Do you guys want to say anything? Anybody? Oh, one question.
I don't have a question, but I would like to thank everyone that participated. And it was really a privilege to hear everyone's history and their story. We really appreciate you guys taking your time and coming here and sharing that with us. It was very cool. And yeah, as someone that plans to work in this field, it really allowed me to see things from a different perspective, and I hope to take in the teachings that I learned here tonight.
Does anybody else have any other questions? Because I've been kind of looking at this screen.
As Norman's ex-wife and Casey's mom.
And her husband.
And husband number two. I have a different perspective. I was the wife of a drug addict with a small child, and I had to make decisions that I never thought I would have to make. But I made those decisions at that time, 23 years ago. But I'm so proud of him and proud of the accomplishments that he's made, and John as well, because John's been in my life since we were teenagers. And to see my daughter come full circle and be compassionate and caring for others that have the same addiction.
Unless you guys have anything else to say.
I'll say one thing.
Oh yeah, what's up?
I just think it's like, it definitely is coming full circle for me too, like watching my dad and my uncle up there, like we grew up together, me and Vivian grew up together since like birth, you know, like, and watching our dads like go through the same thing together and like support each other, and their friendship is like crazy, you know, and like what AA and NA did for them, you know, I think we'll always have that, and we'll always, you know, appreciate them getting clean for us and themselves.
Adrian, do you have any hand up?
I mean, I can speak to that as well, and even when you were talking about being an AA kid, I could definitely relate to being an NA kid and showing up to meetings and sitting, and you know, a lot of the time I was just there for the food.
Yeah.
But, no, I'm definitely grateful that I've been able to watch this journey, and that he's worked so hard to get where he is, not only for us but for himself. So.
If I can add,
Absolutely.
because there's so, I love the family dynamics in here today. And I have, like I said, I work very, very hard on my relationships with my family and people. And I do have all of my family and my children. Everybody is in my life. They're not here right now. But I have worked really hard to gain that back. And I respect the former wives and all the children, because that's something that people don't realize that, because I also have a lot of other addicts in my family and in my life. So, you know, I'm not like the black sheep that, you know, all over my family that struggles with anything. It's very hard for family members to heal and recover. It takes a lot longer. You know, somebody can say, oh, I don't drink anymore, I haven't drank in 6 months. But that doesn't matter. You know, it takes more time. So that is something, like, for anybody who's listening or watching, and if you're dealing with somebody in your family that is sick, you know, that your feelings are valid to be like, I don't believe you. We've done this before. This is hard for me. You know, and that's like, the family members also, their feelings are valid and their experiences are valid. And so I just think that it's nice to see that, like, everybody can come back together and can work it out. And it does take time. But that's a very important piece as well, is that it's a whole family is affected, and, or, you know, more than just a family, you know, friends, family, whatever, are all affected. So, you know, I just like to see that, you know, people are healing and working together and getting through things.
Mike?
I just want to say, I grew up in a family, my parents didn't drink. You know, but once I got into high school, I played football, and you know, there's a group of athletes that I hung around with, and that's what we did every weekend. We went out and we drank. You know, and there were other kids that experimented with drugs. So, you know, you don't know how close, you know, as a young person, you can come to becoming an alcoholic or an addict. In my case, it didn't happen, but I had friends that it did happen to. So, you you have to make the right choices, and if you do become an alcoholic or a drug addict, get the help, like they said today. Reach out and get help. I worked for 26 years at a Budweiser distributor, and in my 26 years, we lost four people that I worked with to alcoholism that passed away. One was a 42-year-old Our Lady of Providence hockey player, and they found him dead in his closet one morning. He bled out, and he used to drink every day before work, every day after work. He would drink during work. So and I didn't realize as a younger person, just how serious it was. And then you start seeing people around you die from it. So, I give everybody up here credit for straightening out their life and continuing to go on a good path. And very grateful that you were here today to speak about it.
I wanna say something to the people who are here who are not struggling with addiction, but who come into school to learn about it and to maybe get in the field to help those of us who struggle with it. Because I can tell you that no one understands me better than another recovering addict. That's just the way it is. We think alike, right? But I can remember being in detox numerous times, surrounded by, nurses and counselors, right? And people just learning who had so much compassion to help me, get better, that, I will never forget those people. There was a few people, that worked at Butler that I would see on a regular, right? I told them, you should have just put a plaque over this bed, because I'd keep going back. And I will never forget them, no matter how long I live, because they just showed me so much compassion. So if you're here and that's what you're learning to do at Rick, or something along those lines, I commend you, because you're our first line of defense, to help us get better, so we can get to a recovery atmosphere, right? If we can't get there, then, we don't have a shot, right? So I just, do that. You're doing that. Thank you.
I think it's important to realize that not every program works for everybody. I thought about AA and NA, and I chose not to. And I did that because when I was studying and ignoring the fact that I had a problem, I would go to some meetings, and it seemed like I was learning new ways to get high or get drunk without anybody realizing that I was doing it. And I recognized that as a student, not as an alcoholic, because I really never figured out what I was. All I know is I got one hell of an addictive personality. I know I can get addicted to just about anything. In my case, it was work. I got the high from work. I got the high from being successful, getting to a kid, getting to being able to help. I just needed to do it. I just needed to do it. I needed to work. I always needed to work, because if I didn't work, I was going to be in trouble. And I knew it. But I've driven a lot of guys to programs and so on, and then it doesn't work. So I always say, try something else. We can try something else. We're just going to keep at it until we find what it is. Again, everybody's different, so one program isn't going to do it for everybody. In some cases, AA works. It may not work for you. So again, try something else. My point tonight was, and I was very emotional because I've never done this before. I've talked in front of crowds before. I've never done this. And I think you need to recognize that you have a problem, admit you have a problem. Don't ignore it like I did. I mean, when I didn't drink all the time. I was a binge drinker. Boy, when I got drunk, I drank until everything was gone. I didn't stop. I mean, I drank vodka. I don't even like vodka. I never liked it. It wasn't something for me, but it was there. I drank it. I drank it until everybody else, everybody gone to bed, and I was still drinking. And then I wouldn't drink for a week. I wouldn't drink for 2 weeks. I wouldn't drink for a month. But if I kept going, I don't know what would have happened if I didn't have my wife and my family.
You know me, I can't shut up, right?
Is it time?
Yeah. Is it 9 yet?
That's all I don't know.
I'll be quick. Yeah, I listened to Brian, right? That's your name?
Yeah.
Brian was up there, me and John were focused on what he was saying. Me and John kept going like this the whole time. Because we understand. And like, see how he says, he does what works for him. 31 years he hasn't picked up a drink. Me personally, I do what I have to do in order not to pick up a drink for a day. That's all I do. My life is simple. You know, when people don't have a concept of, putting a drink down, putting a drug down, and keeping it down, I can put a drug and a drink down, but I can't stop thinking about it. When am I going to pick it back up? I do what works for me. I would never suggest for anybody to do what I do, to stay clean on a daily basis. But I never understood the concept of days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months, and months turn into years. You don't want to hear that when you got a day. You don't want to hear that when you got a week. You don't want to hear when you got the month. Because me as an addict, an alcoholic, I want the reward. I don't want to do the work. So I've been all my life. I want to skip everything and get to the top. And it takes a lot of work. There is hope for the hopeless and hope for the helpless. I can sit here and tell you so many stories of people who were successful, who ended up, dead. Real quick, right? We were just talking about a friend of ours. Her name is Sylvia. Stop saying name? Yeah, it's Sylvia. No. It was in a meeting. My friend lived, he lived under the Branch Avenue underpass in Providence for 2.5 years. He just never, we would try to go by, we would try to help him. I get off the exit, I couldn't even recognize him. And you think like, Sylvia ain't gonna make it. We're all waiting to get a phone call that, he's no longer with us anymore. Well, he's with us. He moved from Branch Avenue to getting out and improving his life. But the addiction is so strong. You would think, how could you live underneath an underpass for 2.5 years? On the coldest, windiest, snowiest nights, I thought about Sylvia underneath that bridge. And I'm only one bad decision away from that being me. I'm not exempt for anything. And we talked about discrimination, right? It doesn't discriminate. I know police officers, lawyers, doctors, firefighters. Again, like I'll shut up.
Guy.
What?
It's an IT guy.
But it doesn't discriminate. His family member got sober at 71 years old. He's lived the best 3 years of his life. He has no regrets. We all take a different path to get where we go. I will shut up in a minute, but I was at a men's treatment center last night talking, right? And everybody laughed at this. And if you're going to be an alcoholic addict, understand it, no. When you tell me to go down the road and take a right, things are going to be all right in this. I'm going to go down the road and take a left. You know why? Because you told me to take a right. I just automatically want to do the wrong thing. And I keep taking a left until I learn. And now I take the right. So now when he comes along and I tell him, when you get down the bottom of the hill, take a right. I know he's gonna go left, he's gonna do what I did. How do I know? Because I know. That's how I learn. That's how I learn. I learn from other people. One thing I know for certain, I cannot do this alone. There's no way, it'll never, ever work for me doing this alone. You know? Everybody in this room has a purpose in life. That's what I believe. I say this all the time. Everybody in this room has a heart of gold, like I do. We all have good intentions, and we all want to do good things, and we all want to become good people and all this kind of stuff. For me, when my good heart, which I have, what happens is when I take these feelings and emotions, I bring them up to my brain, that's where the trouble starts. And everything's good in here. I all look good on the outside. What's going on the inside? You know? And to me, too, one thing, shut up. For me, it's not what people say, it's what you do that matters to me. That's all I got.
Good job.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you all for coming, thank you for logging in, more importantly, thank you to all 7 of you for speaking tonight and coming out and sharing your stories. Except thank you all.
What's the buffet?
Where's the buffet? They can't afford that, they cut our budget again. By the way, if you guys are interested in during recovery, our numbers are dwindling and our budget is getting cut slimmer and slimmer each year. So if you want to come continue letting us do stuff like this, we're trying to be around for a few more years.